technical seminars are an Intertech production. For instructor-led .NET, Java, and XML courses, visit us at www.intertech.com.
And the third type of resource bundle that is common is known as a list resource bundle. And this really can return any type of object you need and is often used for localizing images. So let's start with an example of creating a class that's going to return some strings. So as I mentioned in my particular implementation, what I'm going to do is create an abstract class. And I'm going to call it resource bundle example. And the only purpose of this one is just going to define what keys are available for all of my resource bundles and then override the getKeys method. So in this case, I'm creating a string tokenizer with some keys, username, password. And then I override the getKeys method, which is expecting to return an enumeration object. In this case, I just return that string tokenizer. So again, the resource bundles that I'll create that actually use the keys to look up a specific string will not be abstract, but this class will just define the keys for us. So here is a resource bundle that extends the one I just created. In this case, I need to override the handle getObject method that will take a key and return an object. So I'm going to inspect the key that comes in. If it's username, then I'm going to return username in English as my message. If it's password, I'll return password. If it's submit, I'll return submit. So, this is a really simplified example. I'm really more concerned about showing you the format, but you can imagine this does something more meaningful instead of just passing text. Rather, maybe it looks up this information from a database or some sort of delegate that can get it from any kind of data store that we need. Again, in this case, I'm really just trying to show you what methods you need to override and what it needs to return, what the contract is when you're creating a resource bundle class. If I was to implement a solution that, as you're seeing right here, then really I would use what we're going to see coming up that's known as a property resource bundle. So I've overridden this I've overridden this method called handle getObject, and I return this information. You'll notice the name of the resource bundle is my base bundle name, resource bundle example, and it has a underscore and then a part of the locale information, en for English. So I want to create one for French. Same base name, but now I have underscore fr. I override the same method, but this time I look at the key and I return a French phrase for either username or password. For those who speak French, you may notice that this is not necessarily the best translation possible for these terms username and password, especially in the context of software. I've cheated. I went to Google and used their language tools just to see what the phrase would be. Obviously, if this was a commercial enterprise application, we would use a real translation service. Now, once we've created these resource bundles, here's an example of how it would be used. So in my code, I would first create my locale object. Then I would use the resource bundle class and use a static method on that class called getBundle. I pass in the base bundle name. Notice I'm not passing in any information in that string other than the base bundle name. No underscore en, no underscore fr, just the base bundle name, and then passing in the locale. And at runtime, it will look up the strings username and password and print those out. So let's jump back to our real Java code example and pass in some locales. Okay, so here is our resource bundle tester, and what we'll do is we'll create a locale, start with English, pass that in and see what gets printed out, and then we'll create one with French and see what gets passed out. So go to my resource bundle tester, pass in English, and it grabbed the strings username and password as we expect. Change this again. This time we'll pass in FR for French. And there it grabbed our French strings. So as you can see by looking at the code, again, there's no locale specific information here. I don't need to branch my code depending on the logic. That's the process of internationalization. So I just delegate to this resource bundle by passing in the base name of the resource bundle and the locale, as well as the keys that I needed to look up, and it will give me the regional specific key text that I want to display. So in the example that I showed you, as I mentioned, what I was mainly concerned with was showing you the contract, the specifics of the actual how those strings were generated, which happen to be hard-coded in the class. Obviously, that's something you probably wouldn't do. You would delegate a lookup into some sort of a data store, either through like a delegate object or using a web service. But if I was to just want to like write all the strings out into files, then what I would do is create a property file. And here's an example of that. So what you're seeing on slide 28 is an example of a two different property files. So I've got my English one and my French property file. And you'll notice we're using the same format, a base name for the resource bundle, and then underscore and our locale. The extension here, though, is .properties. Otherwise, it's just a regular text file. So in my English one, I have username equals username, password equals password, username equals, in my French term, and password has my other French term. When I want to use this, I don't actually need to create a class to load up the property files or do any management of the property files. Instead, just in my Java code, when I'm ready to actually use the strings and actually do the lookups, that's where I'll put it in. So again, I don't need to extend any specific class or do anything in my Java source code other than getting the resource bundle and looking it up. So it looks very similar to what we just saw with the looking up of a class generated resource bundle. In that, I mean, you use the resource bundle class that's inside of the Java util package, and you use the static method getBundle, which takes two parameters. You're going to pass in the base name of the property file and pass in the locale. So really, this looks exactly like how we were using our class-based resource bundles. It doesn't matter. What's going to happen is it's first going to look up to see if there's anything class loaded already. It'll see if there's any classes that you created with this base resource bundle name and locale. And if not, then it will try to find them in the file system as property files. So it looks in both places using the same exact code. So here I'm going to print out that locale and print out username and password. And if I jump back to my code, we'll see this in action. So here's my property file tester, and again, it looks almost identical to my resource bundle tester. Let me look at that from before. This one was grabbing our information out of a class, and this one is grabbing it outside of a property file. What's the difference? Nothing. It's just going to first look to see if that bundle exists as a class, and if not, it'll look for it and see if it exists as a property file. So when I run it, it runs pretty much as you would expect. So I'll go to my property file tester. So I'm going to pass in English. And there you can see it got it outside of the property file. Sometimes we need to pass in a little bit more information, maybe a dynamic property, such as what that username is or what that password is, and the placement of that particular parameter that we're going to be submitting may be different depending on which region we're using. So in English, maybe I want it to come, the username to follow after the username. Maybe in French, I want that username to appear as the first part of the sentence. So there's different ordering of words in the context, depending on the context and depending on the region. So
for more free learning resources and to see the latest lineup of our instructor-led .NET, Java, and XML courses, visit us at www.intertech.com.